All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call for September 21st. My name is Brian D. Jackett, and I'll be your host today. Quick little note about our agenda today. We'll cover a little bit of some updates and news regarding Microsoft 365 Platform. We will also attempt our next together mode picture. We just did a quick little tech check, and it looks like it's working. So fingers crossed we'll be able to actually get that in today. And in terms of our demos from our engineering groups, we got a couple of great sessions that we'll be covering today. We join us to talk about the Microsoft 365 Ecosystem Security surveys. We've got one for ISVs as well as for customers. Wajid will be joining us to talk about Microsoft Teams sample code showcase, some great information there. And lastly, we're wrapping up things with Vesa, talking about a preview for our new templates for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint in the new SharePoint framework. So excellent topics for us to be covering today as a community. As always, if you're looking for any information regarding our various efforts that are out there, there's a number of different locations and resources to be available for this. First things first, on the left, you'll see we have our Microsoft 365 developer videos. You can get this at aka.ms/M365dev YouTube. So all great information that we can share out there from our various groups and teams that are producing content. We also have a number of different community videos that are available as well. So for our community calls such as this, you can find us at aka.ms/M365PNP/videos. We do make recordings available for this. So if you are not able to join us, we do love it when people are here to join in person. But if you do need to go and view the recordings, you can go and find them on there. As well, we have a number of open source initiatives out there that you can feel free to join in as a community member. If you have issues, if you have pull requests, if you have other comments or suggestions for these, feel free to join into a number of these open source initiatives. You can find the links down there at the bottom of the page. Also, in terms of just samples, it's great to be able to hear about content or different features and new things, but even better if you actually go and see them live on pages or in some type of galleries. We've got a number of different sample galleries you can go and take a look at, whether it's for Teams, for SharePoint Framework, for the Power Platform, and many other areas. Again, you can find the links down at the bottom of the page on here. And again, because we have so many different resources, if you're looking for kind of the one-stop shop, where should I go and find all the information that I need? You can go to aka.ms/M365PNP. You can find links to all the different sample galleries, to all the different community calls that are going on. So great way to get involved in our community and being able to contribute back in there. Now, if you're looking for a way to be able to kind of get up and started with various Microsoft 365 developments, if you need to have a sample playground for this, we really want to recommend going and seeing the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. As part of signing up for this, you'll also get a free E5 developer tenant with us. And included with that will be 25 E5 users. You can actually go and test things out. So if you're in your own production or test environment at work and you don't have the access that you need, or if you need additional resources, kind of a separate playground or sandbox to be able to work with, great way to be able to go and actually test things out. So as you hear about things for Teams and SharePoint and Graph and other areas, a great way to actually go and try all those things out. You can find more at aka.ms/M365/dev program. We do have a number of other learning opportunities that are available for this. If you want to find Learning Paths, if you want to find modules, other types of free training, we produce a lot of content out here, hours and hours worth of content available for this. You can go and find aka.ms/M365/dev/learn. Go and find information related to whatever topic or skill area or maybe what your role is in your company. You'll find training suiting that type of needs that you may have out there. As well as mentioned, for the samples out there, we've got a lot of different samples that we want to share out with you. Some of these come from Microsoft. Others are also contributed by the community members. So a big thank you to everyone who has provided for this. If you're looking for sample web parts, if you're looking for different types of ways to be able to work with our different technologies, great way to get plugged in with this, aka.ms/M365/samples. You can go and find out what all those different samples are or links to those to be able to get into those. And we've got a lot of different type of open source initiatives that are coming out in terms of being able to get plugged into the community. David, I believe you usually talk about the topics on here for open source PNP. If you'd like to share more about this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Well, friends, we know that this is an open source community and inclusive. And so we understand, though, that there are times where just using or contributing back to the community may come with a certain amount of hurdles or frustrations or just a little fear. Well, we're going to remove all that from you in terms of being blocked. The Sharing is Caring initiative is one that will provide you hands-on guidance on how to get involved in either using some of the initiatives or contributing back, things like how to submit your first pull request. If you'd like to start presenting on some of the patterns and practices community calls, calls, first-time presenter, a number of opportunities, and the ever popular and growing AMAs. So as you can see, we've got the Power Platform coming up next week, list formatting with Chris Kent, which will be always entertaining. And then PNP.js and Starter Kit coming soon with even more. So get involved. They're hands-on guidance. As mentioned, they're safe space, not recorded, so you can ask any and all questions you'd like. And we'd love to help you get more involved. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Brian, back to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, David. Next, I do want to highlight, we have our Microsoft 365 developer podcast run by our own Jeremy Thake and Paul Schaeflein. Great way to be able to find out what's the latest and greatest happening in the Microsoft 365 development ecosystem. So if you're looking for news, announcements, other insights, and interviews, a great way to get involved with this. You can go and find this at m365devpodcast.com. Also, I want to announce that Microsoft Ignite will be happening again this year on November 2nd through 4th. This will be a digital-only event, so feel free to sign up for this. There's a number of great sessions, from keynotes to breakouts to on-demand videos. There's also things like product roundtables. If you want to actually speak one-on-one with the folks who actually build applications or services or tools on top of Microsoft, great way to actually share your feedback directly with those folks. Feel free to go and register for this at ignite.microsoft.com. We'll be publishing the schedule shortly, but for now, make sure you reserve your spot and sign up for any of those type of community elements inside of there. A great way to get plugged in with our conference events. In terms of the Microsoft news, we've got a couple of different things that we'll highlight on here that have been published within the last week. First things first, we do have a change coming to the Microsoft 365 Advanced eDiscovery APIs on type of Microsoft Graph. This will only impact on the beta endpoint, but do take note in terms of how the actual case creation is happening on there. Got a couple of changes that'll be a little bit different than what you may have seen previously. Feel free to take a look at that. If you have feedback for us, please do share back so we can incorporate that with our product groups. We do also have another announcement on here in terms of bringing large groups and communities together in teams. Some different tools and mechanisms and other ways that you can see some samples for ways to actually integrate this into your organization. So take a look at the news on there. Again, take a look, see what might be available for you. And then lastly, we have another announcement on here in terms of multi-tenant architecture for SaaS applications. We know that a lot of developers, they may be working with multiple tenants in terms of customers. And so we have some information in here that we'd like to share just in terms of how do you actually be able to work with that? Rather than just being a single customer tenant, how would you make this effective for those multi-tenant architectures? So great information to be shared in here. You can find all the information that you need in this in a couple of different blogs. Again, we're working on consolidating things. And today we do have it spread across a couple of different areas. But you can find the blogs for this, aka.ms/m365dev/blog, aka.ms/teams/blog, and also the Viva blog on aka.ms/MicrosoftViva/blog. All right, it has been weeks and weeks where we have not been able to get the together mode working. Hopefully, with our quick tech check this morning, looks very, very promising. So if you would, please turn on your video and we'll go into the together mode and we will attempt to try and get our picture time recorded for this. Oh, excellent. I'm seeing, what is this, 20 people or so far? This just warms my heart. I'm really glad to see this.
Finally. It's been quite a few weeks.
Too long.
Yes. I think we're hitting max out, the 50. That's probably it, unfortunately, for now. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you later this year in actual physical conferences as well, but we will keep on doing these remote sessions week after week. So thanks, everybody, for being part of this community. Cheers. Me Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody who joined. I'm going to grab a GIF animation out of that one for sure. Thank you.
All right. Let me go back to presenting. We'll resume back to where we were at. And with that, it is now time for us to jump back into our demonstration. So we'll start off with our very first presentation from Gladys Kenfack. She'll be talking about the Microsoft 365 Ecosystem Security surveys that we have coming out. Gladys, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you, everyone. I love the energy so far. So first, I want to say thank you so much. We inserted the survey into the newsletter last week, and thank you so very much for all of those who've completed it so far. But before getting into, just a quick walkthrough of the survey, I just wanted to reiterate that we have new ongoing investments and commitment to helping us build a trusted ecosystem, and we need your help to get there. So on one hand, we really want to help developers and ISV build more secure applications. So we want to get an understanding from you. We've gotten feedback in the past, things like resource-specific consent that could help, more granular scopes to help build those applications. But if you have more feedback for us, we would love to hear it. And please do take the survey. I'll post the link for the developer survey. And then on the other hand, we also want to be able to help drive adoptions of those solutions that are being built with our customers. So we're trying to understand from them what are some of their top concerns when it comes to adopting and configuring third-party applications that meet their compliance needs. So our goal is really to understand today, hey, based on the solutions that you see in market, what are some of the gaps? What can Microsoft do more? Or how can we work with our partners and ISVs to make that they can preserve their security posture. So please do take a few minutes, give us some feedback, whether you're a developer, an IT admin, or both. Please, we would love to hear from you. So I'll paste the links, and I can either share my screen really quick, but it's a normal, regular survey in Microsoft Forms. We would love you to just click on those links, give us your feedback. We want your voice to be heard, and so that we can start acting on them. And we've already had some things in the pipeline, but we really want to make sure that we're meeting your ongoing pressing needs. That's it. Back to you, Brian. Thank you so much.
Hey, Claes, if you wouldn't mind, it would be great to see your screen, just so we can actually see some of the different questions that are being asked for this. So people know, hey, what are the expectations for this? How long will it take us to complete this? Any other background information would be very, very helpful.
Definitely. So I can actually do just that. So for example, this is the first survey. When we think of developers, for example, there's multiple things that goes into securing your application, including like a process. What do you have to invest in today in order to make sure that your security is built in from the get-go? And then really understanding what are some of the current, security practices that are most common and popular in your app lifecycle. So we have a few examples here. And then also, like, in which phases do you currently spend more time when it comes to security? The goal here is to be able to inform Microsoft about which areas can we have a lot more emphasis. For example, if we don't have more resources in the design phases today, how can we help you with that? How can we help suggest best practices like threat modeling that helps you really find those potential threats and vulnerability early on in your process, and you don't have to rework a lot of code. And then you can kind of go through as well, and the survey is longer. Okay, yeah. So it's about 10 questions in average. It's taken people 7 to 10 minutes to complete. So please let us know. We have a lot of solutions in market as well. If you're using them, if you're familiar with them, and then how valuable they are to your organization or to your application, so that we can continue to invest in them as well. And then we have some open forums at the end to really just get your raw feedback. We would love to really just be able to not just box it in the few options that we know and understand, but really understand, like I said, the last questions, how can we really best support you in that process? So that's for the developer survey. On the other end, it's the blue survey. For some of us who are, color challenged, they had to make a
color coding, like it.
Yeah, color coding. The green survey is the customer survey. Again, it takes about 7 to 10 minutes to complete. And then I will tell you actually a funny anecdote. Originally, we thought everybody is an IT admin, but it's actually not true. Based on the responses that we've actually gone so far, there's fewer IT admin that they are security admins or security architects. So there are more other roles that we need to cater to that in the past we just assume everybody was an IT admin when we think of providing these solutions. So the size of the organizations also matters. So we want to understand, what size of the tenant org, you have if you're managing one on behalf of your organization. What are some of the key decision-making factors, right? Like often we just think about, what policies do you need to administer? But there's a lot of business needs and business considerations and compliance considerations that go into even adopting a single app. So let us know. We want to hear it so that along the full life cycle from a customer standpoint, we can identify the gaps that we currently have in our resources, in our products, in a way that we can help our customers adopt more of the apps in the ecosystem, but in a way that have, big assurance and trust from them. So, the survey, again, it's very short and sweet, like helping us understand the level of risk management when it comes to third parties, so we can inform also and then provide that feedback back to our ISVs in terms of what will meet our customers' need or what are some of the checks they have in place when evaluating, some of these solutions. So please take a look. One of the things that we also want to know is, do you have enough visibility from a customer standpoint in how much data is being accessed and where your data goes today, as a way to understand how much data protection we need to also emphasize on. Please go through the survey. We would love to hear from you. If you are an IT administrator, let us know what you think. We have a lot of new programs in market, including our M365 certification, and then the existing attestation program as well, if that can help support our customers in giving them that assurance about the apps that we have in the ecosystem, so they can keep growing adoption. So the other thing that we're trying to find out is, many of the, especially in regulated industries, have requirements around standard certifications, which ones apply, which ones are mostly requested. So we can also ensure that as we evolve our own compliance programs, that they tailor to what the market needs. So if you have any questions, again, we always end with the open free forum and how we can best support you, how we can best understand the challenges that you face as an IT admin or as an enterprise in adopting some of these solutions. We would love to hear from you. We would love to unblock the supply and demand channel, so that ISVs that are building these solutions are more secure, and then they can indeed be adopted by our customers as well in the long term, so that everybody succeeds. And we are excited about that. And back to you, Brian. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you so much, class, for sharing on this. And again, this is kind of reiterates the whole point of Microsoft runs on trust. And so to further kind of those efforts, we really do want to get your feedback in terms of what we can do as a platform provider, as well as what you might need from a developer standpoint or administrator, how this can help you the most. So class, we really appreciate the time. We look forward to potentially having you back to share results once we've collated that and shared it with all of our executives.
I look forward to doing that as well with this group. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. If you have any questions for Gladys afterwards, feel free to put them in the chat window. We'll make sure that she is able to get to those and we can respond when possible. All right, next up on our list, we have Wajid.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'll share my screen. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to present these samples. Thanks, Vesa, for inviting. So my name is Wajid. I'm a program manager for Microsoft Teams developer communities. And today I'm going to demo a few of the samples which we built recently, which helps developers to see these features in action. What we'll do, we'll go through these slides first. We'll talk about these various samples, and at the end, we'll show you the live demo. We'll show you where the samples are, all the repo details. Okay, so starting with the first one. So adaptive card tabs are a new way to build Teams tabs. Instead of embedding the web content in iframe, you can now render adaptive cards to the tab. While the front end is rendered with adaptive card, the backend is powered by a bot. The bot is responsible for accepting request response appropriately and render adaptive card. Tabs with adaptive cards are currently only supported in a personal app. So we're putting the documentation is out. We also have samples available. Just a quick screenshot about that. We'll see the actual demo in action. Moving to the next one, and using the RSC, you can now request the team owners to consent for a bot to receive user messages across the standard channel in Team without you mentioning the bot. This capability is enabled by specifying the channel message.read.group permission in the manifest of the RSC enabled app. Note that this is still in developer preview, but we still want to show you the demo, how it works. Next in the line is for a real-time event. The user can receive these real-time events for the meeting. As soon as any app is associated with a meeting, the actual meeting start and end times are shared with the bot. So we just have a demo wherein we'll show you how your bot would receive the notification, and then you could take some action to send back in a channel, maybe welcome somebody to the meeting. And last but not least, it's about the single sign-on. As you know, single sign-on for AD minimizes the number of times users need to enter their sign-in credentials by silently refreshing the authentication token. What we did now is we actually created combined sample which does authentication for bots, tabs, and messaging extension. And we have a demo available for that. Okay, and I'll also show you the step-by-steps what we are building for scenarios where we have multiple steps to follow, multiple configurations needs to be done, so that after completing these steps, you'll have your app running. Okay, so demo time. So let me just switch to this page. We have our repo under Office Dev, Microsoft Teams. I'm putting the aka.ms link. I'll paste in the chat window. Here we have list of these apps which are available. Now switching to the demo tenants, we'll start with the first demo, and this is where we have adaptive card tab, wherein the request is actually sent to your bot, and then bot sends back the adaptive card and renders back in the UI. So first step, we're just putting a simple sign in, and note that these all demos are very simple. We just wanted to showcase the capability, how it works, and then you could build on top of that. So once user clicks on sign in, the authentication request is completed. And it follows the same authentication mechanism what messaging extension follows, and it's all documented with all the payloads available. So as you can see, just fetching the profile information from Graph by calling the Graph APIs and putting the name. And here's another example how we show the task module from that app card. The same mechanism works here as well. And when you close, you'll get a submit action, task/submit, and you could take action based on that. And it also provides, you can also provide sign out option. Once you click, you'll be able to go back to the original screen. So we have put in this sample app and all the documentation. You can go ahead and try out different scenarios here. Moving to the second demo, which is RSC-based messages. So what I'm doing right now is I have already installed this app here in this particular meeting. So I'll just put in a message. Okay, as you could notice, like I haven't mentioned the bot, but bot still receives the messages, and the way you configure is you go and put in the channel messages.group.read in your app manifest, and your bot would start receiving the messages. You don't even need to mention. You could start by replying directly as if you are replying to any user. No need to mention, and bot can then take a call whether to respond back or just ignore the message. So a lot of scenarios will be available based on this. Moving to the third demo, which is on real-time meeting events. What I've done is I have already created a meeting. What I'll do, I'll just join this meeting. Okay, once the meeting is joined, the app is already installed in the meeting. I have done that already to save time. And as soon as the meeting started, your bot endpoint will now get an event saying, hey, meeting started. And along with that, you'll get the information about the meeting. So we're just putting in the saying, hey, demo for real-time event meeting started. This is the start time. And then we are just copying the join URL, which is coming from the payload for the bot message. And once you go ahead and hang up, now bot would receive another event back to your endpoint, wherein you could take a call, calculate the duration or figure out and then respond back on the thread. Okay, so both these events are already documented. All the formats, all the payloads are provided in the documentation. Okay, and last but not the least, that's on the SSO experience. Just switching to a different tenant because I have already consented. So here, this is a SSO experience between bot, tab, and messaging extension. Tab SSO, most of you have seen, so I'll just start with the bot experience. So I'll just type in help. Okay, so now it actually shows me a consent pop-up saying, hey, you need to consent to this app. I click on continue. It shows me a permission screen where I'll need to give a permission. Okay, that's loading. Okay, accept. And once the bot gets the permission to access your profile, what it does, it actually just fetches your profile information and just displays it out there. It's a simple OAuth prompt which doing this exchange. And the same now, given that you have already consented for this particular app, if you go to tab now, you don't even need to authenticate again. Automatically for the same, using the same app ID, will be fetching. So when you call Microsoft Teams authentication.get token, you'll now get the token directly and we'll be able to call Graph API. It doesn't stop here with the bot and tab. You could do the same thing with messaging extension as well, for search, as well as even for messaging extension action. So you'll be able to see the profile photo. We're just showing a simple Graph API call to fetch the profile photo. Okay, so yeah, those were all the demos what we have. And I'm just putting in the link for feedback or question. You could go ahead and share your feedback at aka.ms/Teams platform feedback. You can share it on GitHub, Stack Overflow, whichever channel you prefer to.
Wajid, before you stop sharing,
Yes.
Can you go to that and show where the samples were one more time? So just to show the sample gallery and the location and the GitHub and all of that. So.
Yes.
Because we do have time, so no rush.
Okay, awesome. So the samples are here at GitHub Office Dev and Microsoft Teams samples. And if you go to Teams documentation, so let me just go back to the documentation. The best way to go that and get started, we have a link to code samples. And click on this, you'll be redirected to GitHub repo. And the way we have structured is we have all this list of samples for tabs, bots, messaging extension, and you'll be finding all of these samples available in respective folders. So when we just showcase the sample for, so JSON please tab. So any sample if you pick, in that folder we have different languages. So you'll find the sample for C# and Node, same way for RACP sample. Node. Okay, for meetings, we have all of these samples available. We just demoed the sample for meeting events. If I go to a specific folder, what we have done, we have put in a nice screenshot. It gives you idea about that particular sample, and you could just follow the instructions. And it's again like simple and grok, run it locally and configure your bot. You'll start getting these events back to your bot. And what we'll be doing, so all these manifests, what I just demoed, we'll be putting this these manifests as well, so that you could go ahead and try it out.
And if there's any questions related on the samples, or somebody's having any challenges, is to issue us the location to ask help.
Good. Yeah.
Excellent.
And just to properly set expectations, are these open for contributions, or are these from the essentially the product engineering teams?
So these are under Office Dev and managed by a product engineering team. I think most of their contribution for community is happening on the PMP repo, and that's where we recommend going, because this is something we put all these links in the documentation and make sure these are updated whenever something changes in the platform.
Excellent. So we'll make sure that we're setting the right expectations with everyone.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you coming on to share with us. I'm sorry, did you have something else to say?
No, just checking if there are any questions about sample or any feedback.
I've not seen anything in the chat window yet.
Okay.
I'll go back up just to double check. No, all the things I'm seeing were links to previous things. Oh, and then someone did ask, there are new to bots. What is RSC?
RSC is resource specific consent, and so instead of requesting. So this is the permission model change, right, where we started giving a granular permissions, and you'll find more details in the documentation. If you go under utilize Teams data with graph, you'll see a resource specific consent. Now you don't need to go to Teams admin to say, hey, I need to read this Teams details. Instead, what we could do is the team owner can consent to these permissions, and all these granular permissions are listed down, and these are something are included in the manifest, so that whenever team owner is installing the app to the team, they'll see what all permissions they have, and your bot or any app would start getting this access token. I hope that answers the question. In case if you still have any questions, I think you could just go to the documentation page and just click on submit feedback for this page, and we'll definitely get back to you.
Yep, and for everyone's awareness, we are looking at other options for doing resource-specific consent across other workloads as well. So you'll see Teams here has basically kind of led the charge for this, but other areas in terms of Exchange or SharePoint or other things are also looking at options for how we roll this out to get that more granular consent, so it's not just an all or nothing across the entire tenant. Excellent. Luigi, really appreciate you coming on today to demo this, to answer questions, and to share more information about this. Really hoping people can be able to take this and actually roll this into their own things that they're building. Great way for people to get started up, starting to leverage those team samples. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then next, we are going to turn over to Vesa.
Excellent. It's been a while since I've done an actual live demo, not just hosting the call, which is really good. So, so what I wanted to talk about this time, and we have plenty of time, which is good, but we're doing some changes on the SharePoint Framework default templates, and I will explain what those are and what are we planning to do, and I'm hopefully getting some feedback in the discussion channel as well. But before we go there, just to clarify as well, so SharePoint Framework is really intended to be the easiest way to build your enterprise solution in Microsoft 365. So of course, if you are an ISV and then you have an existing SaaS solution, then you might not build everything using the SharePoint Framework model, but you might want to take advantage of SharePoint Framework, for example, for Viva connections. And there's multiple other areas where that still makes a lot of sense. So it is a really cool way of extending not just SharePoint, even though that name applies to that. So, and if you think about the SharePoint Framework as a whole, it provides automatic single sign-on, because you're already signed in to the actual application where it's being, what are you using. It has the automatic hosting, so you don't have to worry about setting up the Azure and applications and all of that. And this is a huge thing especially for enterprises, where getting an Azure application installed or running in an Azure is not necessarily an easy thing for developers to do. It has the consistent developer experience using the web stack development model, so using TypeScript, React, and Angular, and all that stuff. So really, really consistent way of extending then Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and Viva. Now, kind of intros and recap slides, but this is a relatively new one, which is trying to explain where the SharePoint Framework can be actually used. So we kind of are formalizing this in a slightly new way. So we can use SharePoint Framework regardless of the name called SharePoint to extend Microsoft Teams. And we want to make sure that that experience from extending Microsoft Teams using SharePoint Framework, given all of the advantages which we went through the previous line, is as smooth and as easy as possible. So just by running, creating a project and doing basically an F5, things will just have to work and they have to look beautiful. And that's what we're doing as part of this new designs and new elements what we're working on right now. You can, of course, use also SharePoint Framework to customize Microsoft Viva connections. So currently, my SharePoint Framework is the only extensibility model for Microsoft Viva. There are other options coming. There's other options coming from Microsoft Graph to take advantage of the Microsoft Viva platform. But SharePoint Framework is really the way of doing the UX level extensibility. So creating cards for the Viva connection mobile, creating web parts and extensions, and modifying the experiences within the Viva connection desktop experience. And then, of course, not forgetting about the SharePoint. A lot of our customers, there's I can't say the latest numbers, but there's hundreds of millions of users monthly basis using SharePoint, and you can of course extend the SharePoint experiences with SharePoint Framework, and it is the recommended way of doing that in the SharePoint. So, if possible, don't use SharePoint adding model. That's not future-proven viable model. SharePoint Framework is, and then alternative options. Now, one of the problems that we've been having a SharePoint Framework, which the engineering didn't really thought about until pretty recently, or well, we didn't spend time too much on this until pretty recently, is that we did actually have pretty horrible, and you can quote me on that one, horrible experience as you created a new web part, or you created a new Microsoft Teams tab or an experience, and that doesn't look really good. So the UX is outdated. There was no section background support, which is a, well, in quotes, relatively new capability in SharePoint Online. No, it isn't. It's been over there for a while, and there's a supportive way of doing that. But the default template, which was coming out as you created a project, didn't show you how to do that. It had really limited Microsoft Teams support. So if you have a look on the picture right now there, fonts are wrong. And it actually says, welcome to SharePoint inside of the Microsoft Teams. That's pretty awkward, actually. And it wasn't a theme aware. So if you're changing the theme in the SharePoint, or if you're changing the theme inside of the Microsoft Teams, it didn't react on those changes. So you as a developer always needed to do additional work and additional extensibility to make all of that work. And that's why what we want to do is that we want to reset the design and the default experience. So making it really easy for developers as they create a new solution, a new project using the SharePoint framework, and they can easily use that in Microsoft Teams or in SharePoint, and it will support all of the latest capabilities, and you can easily control how that support is also being done. And this work and design is currently ongoing, so we're not quite there. This is a preview. This will not be in the immediately following up on SharePoint Framework 1.13, which is coming up relatively soon, but this will be part of the SharePoint 1.14. I'll come back on the timelines in a second. Now, let's have a look on what it means in practice, as we do have plenty of time to do that. So first of all, let's have a look on the existing experience, so we can actually kind of remind ourselves how, quotes, horrible the experience is. But to be fair, this 6 years old design. The whole point of this one was basically just focus on showing a web widget on a web part, and then if you go to the edit web part experience, you can modify the property, and then obviously it's then reflected in the UX here as well. Now, the challenge of doing this, and as we didn't refresh this experience, is that it does not support section background. It does not support theming. Let me call this plain sample. And what it means is that if I, for example, set the background theme or the look and feel in here to be something a bit more complicated, like dark yellow, it didn't do that properly. Well, it actually did adjust some of the settings, but for example, the section background, all of that stuff wasn't really working in a best possible way. It also actually has some spacing issues. It scales differently and all of that stuff. More importantly for us as well, as we're targeting Microsoft Teams and really want to make the Microsoft Teams super easy to extend using SharePoint Framework, the experience in the Microsoft Teams was pretty horrible. So here I'm in the Microsoft VMI experience in the Teams, but let me actually create here. I think I have a plain sample. It's really, really bad. It actually says, welcome to SharePoint, but I'm in Teams. That doesn't make any sense. The experience is not quite optimal. And then starting to optimize this always took some time. It didn't even have the right fonts available as a template. So we wanted to modify this. So right now the design is then intended to be somewhat this following. So let me actually walk that through as well. Let me go into create a new page in SharePoint, and we can have a look on that modernized template. Let me get rid of that. Let me add in here. And if I only would hello world new design, that's what it is. So we're looking into doing a bit more descriptive web part, and I'll come back on the code and I'll show some of the pieces in the code, but that part has not yet been fully finalized, so there's going to be changes on that. But basic idea here is that it's a fully section color aware. It actually tells you you're running in a SharePoint page. That's going to be flipped that you're running in Teams, so it shows the detection of which platform you're running. The picture is about to be changed as well until at the time this will be shipped. So it will be, of course, much more inclusive as well. So we'll add some additional things over there as well. And we provide additional set of links, additional set of details for the developers to get started. And of course, the experience is theme aware. So in the same way as with the old one, which was fixed at some point, you can actually flip between the themes, and it is actually automatically flipping the pictures. It is flipping the rendering in the right way, which is really, really cool. So everything works without any problems, and it understands the section background experience as well. But more importantly, as we go, well, not more importantly, there's so many hundreds of millions of people using SharePoint Online, and extensibility model SharePoint Framework is being used by tens of millions of users every single month, which is really, really cool. But as we are moving into the teams, and we want to make sure that the teams experience, so you can actually create Microsoft Teams personal applications and tabs easily using SharePoint Framework, and also messaging extensions, we want to make sure that the default template looks clean, and it has the environmental detection on it, so it actually detects automatically that it's running in Teams. It has all of the needed details in it, and of course, if I'm flipping the settings in Teams to be, for example, dark, we can actually say that it's reflecting those settings in the themes as well. So the default output as we create the project from Yeoman Generator is giving you the same experience, which will then adapt automatically depending on are you in Teams or are you in the SharePoint Framework. Now, good comment from Dragan. I will get back on that one in a second. But this is what we're doing right now. So the ongoing debate and ongoing discussion, well, not a debate, because I think everybody agrees on that, is that we have a draft version and a beta version available of this as part of the 1.13 beta to beta 20, which is almost on a release candidate for 1.13, which is coming quite soon as well. We, however, realized that as we are adding all of these capabilities to the default templates, which is actually visible in here, it's going to add quite a lot of additional code. And then the discussion was that some of the MVPs, which is great feedback and completely valuable feedback, is that there's quite a lot of additional text and additional things to always get rid of when you create a new web part and you clean up the outcome from the Yeoman Generator. So what we're now looking into doing is simplifying, for example, this on-init structures and on-init capabilities, so that the baseline theming, baseline section background, baseline rendering options are being much more easily available for the developers. So with few lines of code, we can get started on creating a web part which will adapt based on the environment. It will adapt on the section background and the themes and all of that stuff, regardless how you're using then SharePoint or in the Teams side. But like I said, right now, this is what we're getting from the beta 20, and it is still a beta. So we're going to clean up some of this stuff. We're going to make it easier, and we're going to reduce the level of information which people are having in here, so that we make it easier for the developers to take advantage of the theme handling and all of that stuff if they prefer to do so. You can, of course, always basically drop out from supporting that theming option if you want to do that. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, but again, maybe in certain cases it's understandable. But as an example, this kind of overriding and with a hard-coded styles, this is not going to be there as we move into the release of this particular new version of the templates. Right now, if you are, however, interested on actually having a discussion on this, we would love to get your input. So let me actually go in here and let me jump in here. So we do have in the SP DevDocs issue list, there is 2 discussion notes related on this discussion, one with 29 comments, a lot of input over there, and then one with Stefan Bauer related on the HTML and styling on the web part template feedback. Like I said, right now we're looking into basically, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And how we're going to do that. And just to be clear, and thank you, David, for sharing the link as well. Of course, as we are rolling out these changes, we are updating all of the tutorials, all of the documentation as part of these things. Now, I think I will jump back on the slide just to summarize this one, and then I'll answer the questions, and then we can do in general Q&A in the end. So for now, we're collecting feedback for this, so making sure that people are happy with the outcome. We do understand that every single time you move or change anything as the default experience, some people will react on it, but we want to make sure that it's an easily available option for you to take advantage. So as we were unable to finalize that fully for 1.13, this is now postponed to 1.14, which is intended to go beta a week after 1.13, which is intended to come out within weeks. I think the weeks or days, maybe that's the right way of saying that. But we're really looking into optimizing the code level, so making sure that the output will look somewhat, as we can see in these screens. The picture will be a bit changed to be more inclusive and diverse, but that's the only adjustments what we're looking into doing there. And of course, we're looking into having fully documented patterns and default experiences available. So really calling out how things can be done and why they can be done and all of that stuff. And we'll definitely link additional links as we're adding those documentations in. I'll react some of the comments because we do have a few minutes still on the schedule. So Trakan, if you said that if it would be great if you can build documentation page that explains the code in what's the new default templates and that links to that documentation page inside of the Learn More links. That is a good feedback. Absolutely, that is the intention as well. Kim is basically saying that the new default template is too simple. Yeah, this is the beta part. So some people are saying that, of course, the existing templates is super simple. It's really uber simple. As we introduced this additional layout, some people are saying that this is too complex. And some people are then saying, like Kim, with completely valid feedback, is saying that it's too simple. So there's multiple sides on this. We're trying to find the right compromise based on your feedback. So please participate on that discussion and provide the feedback in the discussion list and discussions in the GitHub. So we will get your input on the design. Now, what we're trying to do basically here is that we want to make sure that the first experience for creating a new web parts for developers will be clean. It will support all of the target environments, and it will support the theming and color settings and all of that by default without you being forced to do additional set of coding, additional sort of set changes. So simplifying that first experience. Now, we understand that we might want to look into more advanced options in the future. So we might want to introduce more complex templated outputs, reference samples, maybe something which you can run as a create a new project, maybe an visual code extension for SharePoint Framework, where you can start by creating from existing sample, which will have a much more complex scenario. So all of that is open for discussion, but really looking into making this better for you. Existing tutorials will be updated. This will not affect any of the existing solutions. So basically, all of your existing solutions will be as they are. So this will be part of the new versions. And if you're upgrading your existing solution, we will not change any of your code. So it's up to you then to basically modify the needed code on there. I'm quickly looking into good note from DeAndrea on the regions. Good vote on that one. And it's in 1.14. Started template. Thank you for that one, Trakan.
We did have a question from Alan regarding the SharePoint Framework ability to do Office add-ins. Is that out of developer preview, or is that still on a timeline for future release?
Now I'm missing the. Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm missing the. Oh, there we go.
It's a little further up. We can use the SharePoint framework to build Teams apps, but is the build an Outlook side panel app functionality out of beta yet?
So unfortunately, the creating of Office add-ins is not out of beta. So if I put my SharePoint Framework engineering hat on, we would love to do that. Unfortunately, our other counterparts, so the Office extensibility people, have been really, really busy on other areas. So they haven't really invested yet, at least, on making that experience optimal. From our perspective, we would love to provide the extensibility option for Office add-ins with SPFX because it is really simple, and the automatic hosting and the web stack tooling is just spot on what we need in the Office add-ins as well quite often. But unfortunately, again, no changes there because we are still having internal negotiations of making that support happen for Office client. Not an optimal situation for sure.
And then I see Gretchen had a request for a SPFX sample connected to SQL. We just posted a link if you want to actually share that as a suggestion into one of the many forums for that. I'm sure there are a number of community contributors who would love to take up that challenge and post something out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Ashar had a good question. What is the connection between SPFX web part and a Viva connection card in terms of showing the card in Teams? As we do have 8 minutes, Brian, if you don't mind, let me use 4 minutes or 3 minutes on this one.
Sure.
Now, I will flip back on my demo environment, and I will quickly explain how things are working. So this one here is technically well, I think the right term to use here is a web part, even though it's a personal application. But technically, you're creating a panel, which is inheriting from a web part, and then you get this experience. Now, in the Viva Connections, we are building a bit different component types. So this one here is the Viva Connection running in my dev environment, which doesn't seem to be updating properly. And that shouldn't actually have an impact. Let me refresh. And I just prefer this to be white. So let me do that. And there we go. We can see those individual dashboards. And that is, for example, a custom ACE card, so active adaptive card component. So ACE is adaptive card component. These are new component types. So technically what we're seeing here is a web part called dashboard, web part, which is then rendering the dashboard, which is the same experience what we will be exposing in the mobile experience. It is a new component type. So you're using SharePoint Framework to create those, but you're not creating a web part. So they are not web part component types. In general, in the Microsoft Teams, if I a bit zoom out here, so we'll see more, we can build custom experiences as the cards, which are then targeted for the mobile experience, and they can connect to the Microsoft Teams applications, or they can or bots, or of course they can hit Microsoft Graph APIs, which is the right way of accessing any information. But you can also create web parts, and these are basically then custom experiences which you can use to extend the desktop experience in the Viva connection, which we can see right now here inside of the Microsoft Teams. Hopefully that a bit clarifies the situation. I can quickly go also in here. If I go to the root, this is technically the same view as what we saw inside of the Microsoft Teams as the Viva connection, but now we're looking to that view inside of the SharePoint without the Microsoft Teams shell on top of it. And we can see the same dashboard card here. I can go to the dashboard details. I can start modifying the dashboard, adding additional things, additional cards, depending on what has been installed to this environment. So I can add additional things, additional options, and all of that stuff. That was a bad demo because it has an issue. So anyway, and as I publish this one, the modifications, then the same design and a dashboard which I just designed here is available inside of my company root portal, or in the company Viva connection experience inside of the Microsoft Teams. And then this dashboard is also exposed in a mobile experience. And that's kind of the connection between the different layers. There's a lot of let's say, dependencies, and it might be quite confusing, but we'll definitely get more documentation, video guidance, demos, and all of that available on the Viva as well. I think we have a Viva development experience scheduled for next week, so that should be good. But I think that's it. Let's actually jump back on Brian on your computer.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the extra time to talk through the unplanned demos, but we do appreciate your time there, Vesa.
Thank you.
Well, really appreciate the time from Gladys, from Wajid, and Vesa today to talk through a number of different areas on Microsoft 365 development. Really appreciate your time and attention on that. As always, if you're looking to get involved in any of the different developer community calls, again, you find ours for the Microsoft 365 platform call, aka.ms/m365-dev-call. There's a number of other community calls as well. We are in talks with many of them in terms of being able to consolidate together to have one unified call for this. But as it is today, we do have a number of different calls out there. You can find the information on here. If you're looking for the all-up view of what all community calls exist, aka.ms/m365pnp is a place to go and find all that information for you. And as always, we do record our sessions on here. We'll make the recording available in the next 24 hours. You can go ahead and find this out on the community YouTube channel for this, aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. Feel free to subscribe to that so you can find all the latest and greatest that's being announced on this. Please do also follow us on Twitter. You can follow the account Microsoft 365 Dev or M365 PNP. Both of those are sharing great news and announcements throughout the week. So great way to also get involved and be able to see what is happening in the Microsoft 365 development space. And please do join us next week for our next call on September 28th. It'll be from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific time during our standard times. So feel free to go ahead and download the invite for this, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again, everyone, today, and have a wonderful week.